Welcome back to the Commercial Real Estate Show. I'm Michael Ball. Today our show is titled Office Market Forecast, Design, and Strategies. My guest is Haril Pandya. He's with CBT Architects. And before the break, we were talking about office design, and it's become very important, hasn't it, on the productivity and recruiting and retention of for companies today. And I read an article, and we'll put a link on the show page here, but read an article that you had in NAIOP titled "Is the Corner Office Dying?" And tell us, what's happening to that treasured corner office.
I mean, that's just it, right? It's the trophy of the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and it's a generational shift, really. The corner office was the coveted Great Award, and I think now, as you see more and more companies sort of diffusing that whole notion that that is the most important thing to achieve. I think right now the most valued thing is the how we work and how we're getting work done. It's you'll find more and more CEOs out in the bullpen with everybody else working. You'll find more and more execs, being more a part of the workplace. And I think from that perspective, you don't really need that corner room to be in that to be in a position of power, to be an executive. I think we're seeing those generational shifts happen more and more, so that the corner office is essentially gone.
Right. And then you created space for Novartis and Bridgespan, the offices, and I read about that. It was really interesting, or I saw you speak on it on YouTube, but you created 3 different areas, an area for quiet, an area for work, and an area for social. I thought it was all supposed to be work. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's just that when you're talking about employee retainage and attracting tenants and creating these factors and attractors to make sure that people are coming to not only your buildings but to your companies. And I think we're because of the infusion of the millennial generation. I mean, I think their ability to be able to pretty much work anywhere, or what I like to call them the where generation, because they can work anywhere. They're able to kind of say, well, I don't necessarily need to be at a desk or in an office to work. I mean, they're the first ones that really kind of took the iDevices or whatever and really decentralized how we work. So, the ability to have social spaces, to have a break, a mental break from what you're doing, to be able to have quiet spaces when you really want to have focus time, or to have more general areas where you can work differently, whether it's conference space or, different types of desk setups. That variety, that sort of flexibility is really what that generation is looking for, and has infused that really pretty heavily into the workplace. And both those companies, Bridgespan and Novartis, as those examples, have really taken advantage of that, so much so that Bridgespan has become address-free, meaning you come to work and you really have no desk. You essentially clock in and pretty much can sit anywhere, and through voice over IP or that sort of thing, you can pretty much grab a phone call or sit anywhere and work however you'd like to work.
Well, that's interesting, because I think sometimes you'd like to be around people and the excitement and the energy and maybe the networking, but then sometimes you want to be alone because you have to concentrate on something and you need that quiet area, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah. And then one of the things that seems to be prevalent out there, we hear a lot about it, are standing desk. Are people really standing up and working?
It started out as a thing to be able to say, I can't sit. It's causing some lumbar issues. There's definitely some ergonomic problems of just sitting all day, 8, 10 hours a day, if that's the type of job. And to be able to have that flexibility, jokingly, we have seen it in other markets or other offices where people have treadmill desks, or they'll have, cycle desks where you could just sort of be active. And I think part of it is to encourage activity and to be able to offer that level of flexibility that you can sit and stand and not really interrupt your workflow is a good option. We have a few at our own office where people are just standing and they're functioning just fine, and then the desk sort of comes down. And it's not necessarily the desk itself. It could be like one of those little add-on components that you can put on your desk. But it's definitely it's not gonna be the next trending giant thing, but it's definitely an option that people are looking for.
Okay. And one of the things it seems like some companies are trying to do, since everyone's so mobile these days, is actually attract people to the office, attract their employees and their salespeople to come to the office. So what can you do in a design factor or design trends today that will really bring people in?
Yeah, I mean, this really just comes down to what I keep using. I call it the F word and the C word. The F word is you got to be flexible, and the C word is you got to be collaborative. And I think to be able to create the spaces that allow collaboration and flexibility are absolutely critical. I often talk about, the millennials are coming. The millennials are coming because they're creating all this infusion. Well, the millennials are here, but we're really looking further out to Generation Z, which in 5 or 7 years at this point are going to be in the workplace. And, when you look at how those kids today are functioning, working together, interacting together, that level of, flexibility in the workspace is going to be critical, where one space can be, a conference space in 1 minute, and it can be an all-hands-on meeting for something else another minute. It could be an event space, on one day, or it could be broken up into nesting desks, and it can become, a quiet work area. That level of flexibility, as the space requirement gets less and less for an office, that flexibility is going to be more important, because that generation is dying to collaborate. They're dying to talk to each other. So I think this is where we're headed as far as office goes, is being able to create these zones. It's not sort of these isolated, cubes or offices anymore. There's going to be these zones, essentially, that are really going to be how we work.
And we're short on the break, but what's next? It seems like office design is really evolving quickly.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing that we're seeing and hopefully causing the tidal wave of is really, trying to blur the line of essentially where we work and where we live. We're noticing more and more that suburban office campuses have everything from restaurants to residential to office space to retail, you name it, it's in one spot, and people are clamoring for that sort of thing. Not only because your commute's a lot less, but it really becomes a live, work, play sort of scenario. And same with downtown. Downtown, if your building has fitness and cafes and it has great conferencing centers, and we're putting in fireplaces and creating almost pseudo living rooms and lobbies, we're really trying to delineate and blur the lines between work and home, because there is really no 9 to 5 anymore.
That's
so
right.
The more comfortable we can make people, the better.
Haril Pandya, thanks for joining us, and stay tuned. We'll have some tips that you don't want to miss, mistakes to avoid in your office environment. The Commercial Real Estate Show is brought to you by Bull Realty, Asset and Occupancy Solutions, Xceligent, building data everywhere, Valuate, easily share what-if analysis with colleagues online, and First Service Solutions, your CMBS borrower advocate. For more information on how these businesses may be of service to you, visit creshow.com.